Hidden stressors you didn't know your kids had. So this was a great question that was brought up to me from a parent. So I'm Dr. Ryan with Dallas Energy Chiropractic, and let's jump into this. So what are some hidden stressors impacting my kid that I'm not aware of? So let's kind of define what stress is. So stress is anything that challenges us, right? So whether it be neurologically or physically. Exercise is a great example of stress. And so let's go into this analogy. I like this analogy because I think it helps explain neurological stress and what the stress is. Okay, so pretend you're picking up a new sport, soccer, basketball, or learning to play the guitar or ukulele or whatever you're playing, right? There's this initial inefficiency, right? You're not as fast or smooth with your movements, right? And so you're very inefficient. It's a stress. Your brain is trying to figure out, how to position your body, what moves to make, how hard to kick the ball or throw the pass or make the shot or where to put your fingers for the chords. It's a stress. Now, over time, you should become more efficient, right? You should be better at it. A year out, you should be a better soccer player, basketball player, guitar player. That makes sense. Okay, but if we've had a hiccup, neurodevelopmentally speaking, so we're off track, okay? We don't progress in this natural way of becoming more efficient. Oftentimes what we are is we're stuck. We're stuck and inefficient with this, okay? So what that means is you're still back to day one where you're playing soccer or learning your chords, okay? And the stress that I'm talking about is neurological stress, okay? So not like a physical stress, like I started running 2 miles and I became quicker and quicker. This is actually neurological. And in the sense of our senses, our eyes, ears, movement, and touch. And so this is very, very important because if we have a child who's inefficient, demands placed on their sensory system is a stress, okay? And we see this, right? This is so common in our 5, 6-year-olds. When they go to start reading, and they're inefficient with their eyes and collecting data from the page, it's very stressful for them. They burn out, their behavior changes, their focus, their attention, all of that changes. So what we need to start doing is identifying areas that are stressful. So I'm gonna give you 3. Eyes. If we notice that anytime we're in bright light, you'll notice in our office, there's a bright light right here next to me right now for the camera purpose, but oftentimes my lights are off. It's just the windows right here that brings in light, because when you come into a lighted area and your eyes have to adjust and dilate, that's a stress. I got kiddos whose autonomic nervous system is very stressed, which means that controls their eyes and their pupils, what allows light in and out of the eyes, and their system can't adapt to that. So they're stressed. So bright lights can stress these kids out. It can make them anxious and they don't know why. So that's very important. Eyes are a big one. Okay, we can dive into that, but when your eyes are inefficient, you're going to struggle to comprehend your surroundings through your eyes. So a lot of visual stimulus is going to be taxing to you. That oftentimes is seen with iPads and videos, right? Where they're getting a lot of stimulus and then their behavior changes. We've seen it in our own kids. So, every kid can demonstrate it, but eyes are big, ears are big. This is a big one for me. I was not the kid that could sit in the classroom. When I was in college, I did not like the classroom because taking in new knowledge, a lot of new knowledge from an auditory standpoint, very difficult for me. I hated class. Class in and of itself was essentially pointless for me to learn because I couldn't take the new knowledge they were presenting to me and I couldn't make anything of it. And so it was very, very difficult. So for me, learning had to be from a textbook. That's where I learned and studied for tests. Going to class, never did well. If it was only material from just verbal, I didn't do well, unless I'm super interested in the topic. But auditory processing is a big one that's missed by parents. It's a hidden stress. So we have the noise of siblings or music or TV in the background, and our brain is trying to filter through this information and make sense of it. But if I'm not efficient at this overwhelms me very quickly. And one of my colleagues, Dr. Andy Cameron, did this little experiment for parents at one of his workshops, which I thought was amazing. He asked them to do a math problem, a fairly simple math problem. But what he did is he put a disco ball in, right? So visual stress. And then he played some like heavy German rock and roll music. Very clever. And what he was trying to do was get the parents to do the math problem while this German rock was blaring and the disco ball was going. Well, as you can imagine, it was super stressful. It was hard for parents to kind of navigate it, even though it wasn't relatively hard math. For them, with all that background sensory inefficiency happening, it stressed them out. And so those are two massive areas where our kids are really stressed out and we just don't know it, whether it be visually or auditory or both, right? Because kids can have both of these. And so what we need to start doing is looking at this. So what I suggest is we start turning down the lights, not have bright lights on, not having the whole house lit up, dimming the light, okay? Also not getting a lot of screen time, which I know parents know, or a lot of visual stimulus somehow. Auditory, the hidden stressor that nobody talks about. All right, so reducing auditory stress, not playing music on in the background, not having a TV going while nobody's watching it or going on. Oftentimes they should be in the other room when that's happening. Siblings, all this stuff. We need to control the sound because they're taking in all of that and trying to make sense of it, and it doesn't work well. And you'll see behavior changes because of it. If you're stressed out, if you're trying to talk to your spouse while I'm blaring, German heavy rock and got a disco ball, and you're like, why don't you understand me? Right? That's essentially what their world is like. They're struggling to take in all this information, but they don't know how to convey that stress. And so they're trying to figure out a way to communicate it, and it comes out as behavior. So look at visual stresses. Do we have too much TV, lights, whatever else may be going on? This is big during the holidays, right, with the blinking lights and the colorful lights, but also auditory. It's huge. Do we have siblings making a lot of noise with TV and music and whatever else? This can overstimulate them really quickly. And then physical. All right, so most people don't know this, but if we have a poor core stability, okay, so our core is not strong, and this is, I would say, about 80 to 90% of our kiddos with neurodevelopmental issues. ADHD, it's very high, 80, 90%. Autism as well. If your core is not strong, you're going to start falling. And this, you'll start seeing this. And so their inefficiency with actual core strength manifests itself in movement. I always say, I was talking to a dad the other week, and I was like, okay, look, 5 pounds to you probably is not heavy, right? No. He's like, no, it's not too bad. All right, well, go hold 5 pounds, for a couple hours. Okay, now we're talking trouble because he's not used to it. He doesn't have the strength to do it, right? Maybe he could do it for a minute, maybe for 2 minutes, but eventually he's going to have to start moving his arm because the tension on the bicep is going to be too much. That's what happens with core. As our core is weakened, because we're sitting in class or was never strong to begin with, we get all wiggly and movie. And so actual physically sitting there is a stressor to them because the weight of gravity pulling them down and their core not being able to keep up is a stress. And so they need movement. So they act out. They start wiggling and touching their neighbor and doing all this other stuff to avoid having to sit still. And so these are the little hidden stressors. So look, do they require a lot of movement? Are they wiggly, especially when they have to sit for a while? Core. And you can get into things like planks and cross crawl exercises and other things to build the core so that they don't have to require all that wiggliness. Just like building up your bicep, right? The more you lift the 5 pounds, the more conditioned you are, the more efficient you are at curling it, the longer you'll be able to hold it. Auditory, I'm telling you, so many kids struggle with auditory processing. And so for parents, what this means to you, reduce the auditory demand, okay? This may be changing your tone of voice. This might be speaking slower. Hey, Johnny, go upstairs. Okay, go upstairs. Okay. Change your clothes. Go upstairs, change my clothes. Okay. Then do your math homework. Okay. Johnny, go upstairs, change my clothes, do my math homework. That is easier for them to comprehend versus Johnny, go upstairs, change your clothes, do your math homework. Different speeds, right? Different levels of a soccer player, basketball player. Kobe Bryant will know a play and can move smoothly through a play. I can't do what Kobe Bryant can do. Okay, so we have to, we just have to understand that there's efficiencies going on here. And if we can help them with these efficiencies, these hidden stressors can be identified, and ultimately we can reduce the stress, because these hidden stressors are oftentimes what parents are seeing. It's behavior, it's attention, it's focus, and ultimately this is all leading up to higher autonomic stress. And I will jump into that a different podcast or video. But all right, there's a couple people watching. Do I have any questions? Let me look, see if there's any questions going on. No, I don't see any. But parents, physical movement, touch stress. Do they require a lot of movement and touch? So you see this too. So kids with sensory issues, sensory concerns with touch, they have to go touch everything. This is the kid that walks into the room and touches all the seats and feels them. What we should be able to do is look at our eyes, recall from memory what a chair like that would feel like from a sensory aspect. That's what it should look like. I walk into a room, I don't have to go feel every chair. I have an idea from visually and from pulling from long-term memory what that chair will probably feel like. If I'm inefficient with my eyes and my sensory system, I might go touch that chair. Make sure it feels okay. Make sure it's sturdy. And so you have to be aware of these things. Them going and touching the chairs and everything is nothing more than them trying to understand their world. Okay, so if you start seeing things like this where they have to touch and feel everything, that's them being inefficient with their motor sensory system. Okay, if they're verbally inefficient, slow down your talk, how quickly you're speaking to them, change your tone of voice, lower the auditory demand on them. And then visually, lowering the lights, not allowing a lot of screen time. Avoid blinking lights. Those are all very important. Or like, I forget what these lights are on the ceiling, but whatever those lights are, those are very stimulating to the system. And so all of that can have a dramatic impact on those hidden stressors. And that goes for us adults too. Look, we get stressed just the same way kids do, okay? Again, I'm not efficient with my auditory system. Brittany struggles with her visual system. And so understanding each other and understanding that she can't give me a lot of verbal stuff without me kind of stressing out, and I can't give her a lot of visual stuff is very important for our marriage as well too, right? So understanding our partner as well when it comes to what their stress is. And so I hope this helps you out. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I try to deliver a lot of information that's helpful. So I'm glad this was helpful. If there's any other questions or anything else I can help you with, please let me know. Please comment. As always, there may be a parent out there that could use this information as well. Please share this with them. And I will jump on again soon, probably within the next 2 days, and I'll talk about the autonomic nervous system and how inefficiencies in our sensory system alters our autonomic nervous system, which ultimately leads to stress. Okay. Okay, so with toddlers, I notice it when they're playing with something and start throwing everything or yep, there you go. High stress, right? When they're making a bunch of noise together and there's all these new toys, we have visual stimulus from the toys and then the auditory processing from the other kiddos in the area. Yeah, they'll start acting out. That is a good one. Actually, I like that one. That's really good. I didn't mention that. Toys, right? New objects, a new scenario is visually stressful, okay? So when we go into a new classroom, new material could be stressful. New sets of toys could be stressful. So think about that for a second. I noticed that when they transition classrooms, or we got a new teacher and she changed some of the stuff on the walls, and I noticed this. Or, maybe what's on their walls as a teenager is overstimulating. They just don't realize it, right? And so that is a very good point. You notice it with toddlers, right? All the new toys, all the new stress, bam. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And reading material. Reading material is probably the largest visual stressor that we see, because you're taking an abstract object and creating what we call mental image from it. And so taking words, taking letters, combining those letters to create a word, and then we should have a mental image of that word is very, very stressful. Reading is the number one stressor that you typically see. Usually manifests itself around the age of 6. So usually about first or third grade is when we see that struggle start kicking in. All right, awesome. I hope this helped. If there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And I look forward to another great video with you next time. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for the comments and the questions. Those were great.